the stabilization period, I had operating expenses of $1 million. I haven't depreciated anything here yet, but at the end of my stabilization period, the value of my building is now $46 million. In addition to that, during the stabilization period, I incurred $4 million worth of leasing commissions, TI, and allowances that I gave my tenant. So in addition to $46 million of fixed assets that I have, of buildings that I have $4 million of
Direct cost.
leasing costs.
What was the $1 million for?
My operating loss, my operating expenses during the stabilization period.
Okay.
You know, I'm paying utilities, I'm paying property management fees, I'm paying landscape.
Right.
I'm incurring, you know, the building's operating, but I'm not generating income yet. So that's the net. Again, it's net. During the stabilization period, you take whatever income you have and whatever expenses and you net it and capitalize it. But Maricela, to your point, these other costs also go under your plant, property, equipment in your balance sheet, but they're amortized under a different term than the building. No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She doesn't like it, but that's okay. I can't spend any more time on that now. I think we know enough on that now, because I think it's important to talk about, so, what the appropriate method to recognize rents are is as follows. Accounting literature tells landlords to do the following. You take all of your rents from your lease term, with all of the bumps and all that. So you started with $100, $103, $106.5, and in the last year you have $120 because you build in 3% increases every year. So now the total of this, I'm just making this number up, I don't know what it is, okay, 150. What the accounting literature says that you need to do is make a journal entry that says, you create an account receivable for the totality, undiscounted cash flow that you expect from the leases, and you create an unearned revenue account for that amount, okay? A deferred liability. And every year, you straight line the rents. So year one, you're going to recognize 150 of rents. Year two, you're going to recognize 150 of rents. And so on down. Okay?
It only goes up to 120.
Sorry?
It only goes up to 120.
No, dear. I said the total is 150. I just, here, you want to do it a different way? Here, let's do it a different way so that we can. Do we get to 120 that way now? Does that make it easier? Okay, do you want to do what the real math is? Somebody add 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. What's the real number? Come on, somebody pull out a calculator.
Have our phones with us.
How many years? 10.
What are you adding up? I got that.
Rent. Year one, I pay $100. Year two, I pay $102. Year three, I pay $104. ¿Ya lo tienes, Marta? Ya. Ya. Pollo. They speak a different language there.
Yo no hablo cubano, yo hablo porteño.
Yo hablo. Sorry, they have a peculiar accent in Argentina. It's kind of like people from Alabama. You know what I mean?
It's not Alabama.
He's from Alabama.
Yeah, but they
Don't make fun of people from Alabama. He's bigger than us. He's the biggest guy here.
tell people this, the NFL player. Jacksonville.
Red.
The fourth,
Jack, that's another state, Jacksonville. It's another country.
Southern Georgia.
I prefer the Northeast. The people from Northeast, I understand perfectly.
Huh?
Okay, did somebody add this up?
Working on.
And that's what she's doing. She's
I
got it.
did it each year.
No, you don't.
No, you have to total the initial term and then you.
Yeah, so it is the average, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, listen.
But the top rent's 120.
Yes. 106, 108, 110, 107.
Guys, can somebody pull out a calculator and add this for me, please?
The average is being like 110.
10, 12, 14, 15, 16, 20.
Okay, what's the total, so that Alyssa's happy?
Yeah.
Come on, you're the one who asked the question, you add it up.
I still don't know what that is.
Do the work.
Add all those numbers.
Those numbers.
Playlist. Zero plus 2 plus. Hey, I still haven't learned how to use
2,
this
2,
calculator.
4, 6, 8,
210. 210.
210. Okay.
So it's 21. No, it's not. It'll be 210.
The average or the total? The average. The average is in the middle. Is it's in the middle of the period. 108. If 10 years, in the middle is the average.
That's a neat.
The median. No, you need to add.
No, guys, hey, let's just finish this and then we'll take 5 minutes. Relax. Not, just lost my place.
Alright, here we go. I got you right now. You ready? 6,
Listen,
12,
listen.
20. Where's 20?
It's gonna be there, okay? But
So,
It's so simple. Messed it up.
Dividido 10. Divide 10.
121.
121.
The average rents during the year are 121, right? So it's 1020. The sum of that is 1020. It's 121 every year. So even though you don't understand the question you asked, the question you asked was, how much do we recognize as rent income every year? We recognize
The
121 every year. Every year. So as commercial property landlords, we sum all of the rents of the lease term, and we take the average, and that's what we recognize every year. That's what we call straight lining rents. Straight line rents, your rent income is included in FFO. It's included in FFO. But what you're reporting under FFO, your funds from operation, is the average lease rate for the year. It's not the effective interest, it's not the effective rent, it is the average lease rent for the year. Under AFFO, we adjust back to cash flow. So we would make an adjustment, and in the first years of the lease term, we're recognizing more income than what we're collecting. In the latter years, what's happening? We're recognizing less than what we're collecting. Okay?
What were the two abbreviations again? It was two FFO and
FFO and AFFO. So in the REIT realm, so if you're a commercial property owner and you're looking at FFO, in your FFO calculation, you have used straight line rent income. In AFFO, one of the adjustments that you make to FFO is you add or subtract the net effect of straight lining rents.
okay.
Yeah, and it's not 121, guys. I added 120 too much.
No,
It can't be.
I got
It's gonna be like
121.
one,
I got
how can it be
121.
higher than,
It can't be.
it's gonna be like 112 or?
It's like 112, yeah, it's somewhere here. It's like 112. I added 1 year too many.
So under straight line says.
That's what I'm saying, it's so hard.
You haven't seen, you didn't even pull out your calculator.
Because I knew that it couldn't be more than one.
Okay, well, look, 110. It doesn't matter.
It's one,
You had
yes,
150
109.6.
109.6 according to Mata without the T.
Without the H.
Oh, I don't remember exactly this sheet.
It was 109.2.
In AFFO, you make an adjustment, you add or subtract the effect of straight line rents. Okay?
I don't want to ask this, but what is FFO and AFFO?
FFO or funds from operation. That is the proxy
A is
for
adjusted.
net income
Okay.
that is used in a REIT realm. It is like
Right,
NOI.
okay.
It's
Come back.
net income plus depreciation plus gains and losses on sales of assets. AFFO is FFO, adjusted funds from operations, plus or minus straight line rents, plus or minus or plus capital
You have
expenditures
me
that you
handwrite
made.
notes, I'm all messed up now.
You're all over, but you're gonna,
I can't find
okay,
it.
2 quick things, 3 quick things. Contingent rentals, you see those in retail a lot. You get a base rent plus a certain percentage of sales. As a landlord, you recognize that only when you realize it.
What was it again, contingent?
Contingent or percentage rents, okay? Okay, so when you recognize it, oh, I'm sorry, when you realize it, okay? You don't say, oh, I think they're gonna sell so much, so I'm gonna book the income. When you collect it, that's when you recognize it. Modifications or renewals I mentioned. Modifications or renewals to leases are dealt as new arrangements, new agreements. So whenever there's a modification or a renewal, you gotta redo your accounting, okay? Just look at it as a new contract. It is a new contract, okay?
So you
And then
redo-
some,
Redo your accounting for modification and renewal.
yeah, so if you modify a lease, you gotta take a look at your accounting and modify whatever whatever the net impact, economic impact is of that. You have a new agreement, so you gotta look at it as a new agreement.
You start a new amortization period and everything?
Listen, we can go into all we can go into all variations of this, because we can look at it as a landlord or as a tenant. But the reality is all I'm saying is you have a new agreement, and you need to take a look at the situation all over again. If all of a sudden you would spend, just to say something, $1 million on a landlord on TI, and the tenant comes in year 5 and says, I need you to tear that all down and spend another $1 million on doing something totally different, you gotta write off that TI, the first TI. That's a scenario, for example, okay? I expand, so the modification of the lease is an expansion. There's more leasing commissions associated with that. Guess what? You gotta capitalize those, okay? So what I'm saying is anytime that you've got a renewal or a modification to a lease, it's like a totally new arrangement, okay? And you gotta revisit all the accounting that you've done. The last thing I was gonna say is subleases. Subleases. So subleases when a lessee essentially cedes his right or transfers his right to use to someone else. Reality, in many commercial transactions, at least in the institutional realm, subleases aren't permitted. Because institutions don't want to have tenants that they don't have a contractual arrangement with. Issue number 1. Issue number 2, they don't want a lessee making money on a deal. So in a lot of cases, if an institution allows an institutional lessor allows a lessee the right to sublease space, they will typically, 1, make it subject to their approval, so they will approve it, and number 2, they'll take any money that the lessee is making and put it in their pocket. So basically, there's no arbitrage there for the lessee. What typically happens is, there'll be a loss on a sublease. And because of that, and you got to go back to FASB 5, you don't need to remember it's FASB 5, but if you have a loss that is known and measurable in advance, if you're Hewlett-Packard and you're leasing 2 floors of space that you were leasing from teachers at Blue Lagoon for $20, and you're subleasing it to Care Cloud at $2 a square foot, you need to take those $18 of loss and book the loss currently, as soon as it's known or measurable. So if you're subleasing space as a lessee and you've got a loss, you need to recognize the loss now, upfront. Let's take a break. Everything you want to know about leases, but we're afraid to ask.
Question for you, maybe I should 5 times. Acquisition development costs get
We're gonna go through that next week. They get capitalized.
capitalized, right? So they become the cost of the development. However,
Right.
your initial lease up is going to be an expense against your revenue.
No, your initial lease up period, again, during the stabilization period, those costs
So that's going to be part of
associated with the operations.
Gotcha.
They're gonna be added
Okay.
to,
But then thereafter, so second gen space would be an expense against the revenues, I guess.
no. You're mixing concepts up. There's two
Okay.
concepts here. So there are operating concepts and there are direct leasing costs, right? So the direct leasing costs are leasing commissions, TI, allowances, right? Signage, right, et cetera. Okay, any direct costs that you have associated with procuring this future cash flow, okay? Those costs are capitalized, whether it is during a stabilization period or subsequent,
Okay.
they are capitalized and amortized over a lease term.
Oh, because with a specific property, is that the?
Or a specific tenant.
Okay, okay.
Remember, you weren't here, you said a lease. Could be land, it could be land or buildings, or it could be a portion of a building. So, I lease, third generation, floor number 8, third time. I totally recur all these things.
Okay,
I amortize it during that lease term.
okay.
Which is different than when I was developing the building. And during the first year, in addition to these costs which are being capitalized and amortized over the lease term,
Okay.
I'm incurring operating costs.
Right,
I'm paying property taxes, I'm paying insurance, I'm paying maintenance.
okay,
But I'm incurring a loss because the building's 90% empty.
okay.
GAAP says you could take that loss and capitalize it.
That's what it is.
Does that make sense?
It does. So typically speaking, anything associated with a property is going to be capitalized.
And then amortized during some period
So
that
what
tries
would be
to
an
match.
example with development company where it would just be an expense, would just be an employee that just does day-to-day
We'll talk,
shit?
we'll talk about that. Typically G&A and marketing costs are
Okay.
expensed.
Gotcha, that's where I'm.
And direct and indirect costs associated with the project would be capitalized. and
Gotcha,
amortized.
fair enough, thank you.
Does that make
It
sense?
does.
We'll go over that in greater detail.
So the number's added. It's just, the problem was,
Where-
well,
where
when you mark something X from 0 to 10, it's actually 11 different installments.
Right.
And so instead of dividing it by 10, you gotta divide it by 11, that's what comes out to 110 instead of 121, which is what I kept.
Well, the answer to that was actually 108.
Was it 108?
Yeah, because the 120 wasn't supposed to be used. Because if it was just 10 years, it goes to 118.
Then it goes to 118 and it's 109 or whatever.
It's 110, it's 110.
Is it one,
110.
whatever?
The answer was 108. man.
But hold on.
Want to
hold
put
on.
money on it?
Hold on. But we know the concept.
Yeah,
That's what matters. I don't care about the real answer. The concept.
because you're doing 11 years. It's only a 10-year lease. You can't
But
do
he had
11 years.
he had
He had it
11
up there, but that's where it was
So
incorrect.
you take the last one off? Or
Yeah,
you-
that last one had to
What if
go
you
away.
took the first one off, then it would change the number.
But it started at 100, so you have to use the first one.
Alright,
You gotta use the first
one.
one.
You're
And
right,
you only go 10 years up.
you're right.
Yeah, that's what the abatement was for. The process of it was streamlining
I don't know how you-
total, like,
Oh, yeah.
in a retail lease, or any lease, the abatement a lot of times is not really a month free,
How
or
much
2 months free. They take that month and divide it by 12, and then do take that amount off of each month, so that it works out to be, it works out to be 2 months, 3, whatever amount, but you're still paying rent every month. That's one of the options. Obviously, you could take that off, so it's not take the income, but
It's just a tool to
landlord's probably gonna
give
be
you an understanding of how you would do it if you didn't have it, so,
how's the baby?
like that.
Good. That's good.
Hubby took my baby to the water park.
You did? Oh, you mad?
It's the water park that I couldn't wait to
Keeping
see
you up
it.
at night, though.
Yeah, I always waited. film circle, they have water that's
That's probably not gonna ever change.
And so I never took him when I was in the house, not working, because I would wait for him to come. And then I'm in school and he takes me.
That's messed up.
No, but she's, oh yeah, it's always daddy. Daddy.
Like I took my son to Disney World, just me and him.
That's cool.
Yeah, we just went together and that was it.
Yeah, now we're gonna go
Then his
to-
mother got jealous and took him like a couple months later too. Just she was hating. But
My kids,
That's how.
they be teenagers, so they don't even want
we don't want to hang out with him. Never watch him anymore. My son's almost at that point. He's 6 and he already don't.
6 going on 20.
Yeah, he's. But it's so cool. I'll tell you, the thing I like most about my son being the age that he is that he fascinates me all the time. With the things that he knows
Right.
and that what he's learned is fascinating.
They're little people.
Yeah, just watching him grow into an intellectual kid.
Yeah. Why? Why do they do
How old is
this?
he? 6. Like he found it important to teach me that Pluto was no longer a planet.
That was really upsetting when I was
And
in
I was
school
like,
when that happened.
oh
I
wow.
was,
Because somehow we were in the car, we're just chatting about somehow the question of how many planets came up. And I'm like, yeah, there's 9 planets. And he was like, no, Dad.
no longer.
Pluto, it's only 8 because Pluto's not a
How old
planet
is your
anymore.
son?
He's 6.
My niece
No,
is
fine.
6 and she says she just moved in with us for a month before my sister and they closed the house over. Stuff that comes out of this little girl's house is hilarious and totally entertaining.
It's very
They start
interesting.
repeating the mannerisms and habits and everything you say.
She said a bad word and I had to turn it into something else.
Oh, my son put people on, because I don't really, I try to stay away from using bad language around them. But he always makes it a, yeah, hey, you know, you gotta let it out sometimes.
My mom's
He makes it a
principal,
manner
so
to
there's
let
no
people know when they
cursing in
use
front of
bad
children.
Sometimes it comes out.
Yeah, I had to turn the word shit into eating chips on a toilet.
Ah.
Wow.
I told my kids, once you start, you can't stop. So don't start.
Well,
It's true.
but there was actually, my son watches YouTube a lot, and he was watching this series of videos where some kid is playing a game, not really a kid, like a probably 19, 20-year-old dude, playing a video game. And he curses everyone. It's a reaction to something that, oh shit, you know, like, so, and then the question came to me, he actually asked me if I was comfortable with him watching it, and I told him, listen, the moment I hear you even look like you're about to use some type of language like that, it's all out the window and I'm gonna whoop your ass. But as long as you understand that these are words that cannot be used, go ahead.
A baby's still.
But
Listen,
the thing is
I
you have
started
to
cursing
explain
in 2nd grade.
which words they
Well, I mean, they can
can. Like,
absorb
if
it.
not, they just think
Yeah,
it's
why
a
can't I
word.
use
Still, I mean, you learn how to
That's,
be a
and
parent.
that's where mine
They're learning how to
lies.
be kids.
Yeah.
You're learning how to
Because
be parents.
how do they know if they see it in a video? How does he know it's a bad word?
My
And it
father,
can't be
I
repeated.
grew up with my father cursing like a sailor around me. Now, I choose not to use language like that around my son, but I learned that I chose whether or not I was going to use it or not. It was my choice. It wasn't him. And like I said, I was in school, 2nd grade,
Yeah.
cursing like it was
Exactly.
nothing.
Refusing in the right context.
But around my father, but I never used it around my father. So that was the one thing I wanted to make sure. Like, hey, I better not ever hear it. Then you got a problem.
My parents or my mom, my father would only curse in Spanish.
Yeah.
And then my mother would only curse in Portuguese.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, it didn't,
This
those
is
words
where
didn't
you
mean
know
anything
you
to me.
know
You know,
what it
right, you know, they were just irrelevant.
Right.
So I didn't hear any of that stuff. And then going to construction, where every other word is an F word and stuff like that. You know, people are calling you out, sound. You know, it was
I
on
mean,
here.
By 2nd grade, I mean, we all knew what all the bad words were.
I was using it fluently, like a new language.
Oh,
No.
I've already
You
had
didn't?
birds and bees
Stupid
talking
was
to
a
my
bad
kids,
word in my
you
house.
know,
We're not
2
allowed
years
to use
ago.
the word
Yeah.
stupid.
You know, my kid got so embarrassed.
If
he
you,
wanted to
excuse
take-
me, what did you just say? I mean, my mother's a
Friends
sailor
that
now.
have
It's
kids.
funny. Now that I'm older, she doesn't
Yeah.
catch this
They're
like
like
funny.
Wikipedia.
And my dad goes,
So every time we're like, well, what do we do?
my dad's still like,
Look,
none of
we don't
that.
talk about sex and drugs. You do it 2 years before you think they need to know. because they're already getting out. And we told them, look, we want to have this conversation with you because we want you to hear from us, not from some kid that you're hanging out with that's going to tell you something totally different. So we were totally honest and blunt about everything. We tell them how it works, how parts go where and everything. And I mean, my kid's got beef red.
Yeah.
My son was calling vagina a penis, right?
Yeah.
A girl penis, that's what he was saying. I'm like, I had to explain what it was. But he's asking me questions. The most uncomfortable questions my son asks me are actually about religion. Because I'm not a very religious person. And I never wanted to be the dominant factor of why he chooses to either believe or not believe. So like, he's asking me if God kills people, you know what I mean? Like on the sense of if you get sick and you die, you know? And I'm just like, you know what it was? He was asking me about the video game, The Sims. He's like, are we playing God? This is my son. Are we playing God? Or we're playing The Sims? And I'm just like, no, you're not. It's just a video game that you're controlling the action of. Theoretically, it kind of applies, but it's the same way you play a fighting game. You're controlling the actions of it, just as a video game.
Whoever, yeah.
It's a tough question. Yeah. Because again, that's when they went into, well, does God kill people? I'm like, well, I don't think he does that. People kill people. Weapons kill people. Sickness kill people. God doesn't control people. That's what I told him. We make it. But it's a tough question.
Yeah.
Especially coming from someone who's not necessarily religious. Sure. Tough. Yeah, I should have had him look it up. Look
it up, Google it. I don't know if this did anything. It's all Google.
I didn't do that on purpose. I did not, but I'm glad it worked out. Okay, I think we covered everything we need to cover related to leases, and then some.
That was fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I unfortunately don't have a lot of time to go over current events, although I thought there were some very interesting things. Number one, where 10-year treasuries right now?
1.919.
Ah, look at y'all.
1.976. 999.
Technically 9.2, but whatever.
1.92.
Well, I'm glad.
1.917.
I'm glad you're following it. That's important. Okay, so whether it's good or bad or where they're going, that's a whole other issue. But I'm glad you're tracking that. That's important. From I was going to read this. I'm not going to read all of it, but this is from today's Miami Herald. It says developer's bid is disqualified. So this has to do with the redevelopment of the convention center on the beach, and in particular, they want to put a hotel, blah, 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 blah. But, listen, it says one of the two bids has been disqualified. The bid was disqualified because it basically did not answer the questions that were asked in the bid. So I'm not going to go into it, but listen, just, it happens in real life. Stuff comes in late, you know. You're missing a decimal?
Oh my God.
Well, I think you were missing a decimal once, weren't you?
No, that was more than a decimal.
I think it was, yeah. I think you were in the billions and it was in the pennies. And if you don't respond to all the questions, so months of work for nothing. Okay. A couple things that I do want to go over with you. Number one, did anyone send you something about a summer internship at Walker and Dunlop? No? Okay, so we have a former student, Hugo Hernandez, who works at Walker and Dunlop, it's a publicly traded firm. They're intermediaries in the real estate industry. They're looking for a summer intern in their capital markets area. Okay, market research, you know, preparing high-level detailed analyses in Excel, blah, 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 blah. File maintenance, administrative tasks, and whatever, you know, listen. But Hugo, you know, was doing whatever, he was working at some municipal government, doing something vaguely related to real estate, I don't really remember, and he got an internship with these people, and I worked full-time there. So the internship opened the door
Yeah.
for a nice job. So if any of you are interested in a summer internship, let me know. I'll get you the details, and then you can write directly to Ugo. Okay, so if any of you are interested in a summer internship, see me at the end of class, please, and I'll get you the details.
Is it paid?
I don't know, probably not.
Oh.
I have no idea.
Talk to
It
Ugo.
doesn't say. It doesn't say. What do you
I'm
think?
just being.
No, I'm gonna guess it doesn't pay, because like, you know, like now, like when I was a kid, everybody got a summer job. And if you didn't have a job, you got your lawnmower and went around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Now everything's like an internship and, you know, so. I'm not gonna cover this. I used to cover market reports in this class, but it's, people complain there's too much material in this class, so. But anyway, I just wanna, I don't know. One of our fellow students was instrumental or helpful in putting together the annual report or the annual pulse that Jones Lang LaSalle puts out. And Melissa was kind enough to share it with me last week. The other thing I want to say with this is whether it's the Jones Lang LaSalle information, CBRE, Cushman, Marcus and Millichap, you know, all the large brokerage firms put out market information for free. And ultimately, knowledge is power. So if you got a sense for what is happening, that's awesome. If you listen to what people think are going to happen, not as helpful, but you know, it is helpful, okay? Because they're out there in the street every day. They're intermediaries, they're dealing with landlords, they're dealing with tenants. They've got a sense of what's going on. So I recommend that you get used to signing up at all the different brokerage houses and getting whatever free information they have available. Do you have a question, Justin? Or?
What's one of your preference between all of them? CBRE?
It depends. CBRE has probably the broadest reach of free information, but JLL has great office, you know, throughout the country. There's some industrial that they put, but you tell me.
I mean, we have a new industrial analyst in Miami that's putting out some pretty good stuff.
Okay, but then that's
But
new.
if you're not like a client or someone who's on a specific list, or you can't get it.
Okay, all right. But I mean, they've historically been very good with office, so you just try to, there was one I found out there that tracked hospitality. I forget, we did it, when we did the due diligence class, we went over it, I forget who it is, because I don't usually track that, but if you want like one place, CBRE's the one that covers the, you know, they've got from multifamily, office, industrial. Cushman's got good industrial.
GLL is fantastic in hospitality. GLL is fantastic.
But not publicly available.
Yeah, they have the investor sentiment report.
It depends. Some of it's not that easy to get to.
Well, and then, you know, you could always get to stuff like, you can get to stuff like, you know, very top level, like the ULI, PW, you know, emerging trends and things like that, which is always very helpful. I don't have a lot of time, so I think I'm going to skip most of these things, so but let me see if there's anything of relevance here. Did that one. Yeah, man, there's one I wanted to do. I really wanted to do this one, so why don't we just focus on, okay, hold on. I'll leave this one for after. Prologis pays $6 billion for KTR. Somebody mentioned KTR the other day. There's the guys at you. Keystone had sold to Prologis. A&B bought Prologis. Now, and changed the name to Prologis, and now Prologis is buying KTR for $5.9 billion. How much are they paying for the assets? What does $5.9 billion translate to? What does that mean? Is that good, bad, indifferent? Is it a lot? Is it high? Is it low? I don't know.
I think they have like close to $1 billion of assets under management, and the rest is carry and.
I don't know what any of that means. What are they paying $6 billion for?
Real estate.
For the real estate.
How much real estate did they buy?
5.9 billion.
Come on, man.
No.
I don't know, did it tell you in the article?
No. No, it doesn't.
Oh.
You gotta go find out how many square feet they bought, and it translates to $84 a square foot.
Go back in.
Is that good, bad, indifferent, is it market, does that sound
That's
like?
great.
That sounds great to me.
Depends on where it is, I guess. Yeah, it depends on where it is.
Where is it?
Where is all these located?
You guys missed
Where is
that
it?
article?
Okay, so get used to reading beyond the headlines. No, it's not in Alabama, a lot of it's in Florida. It's probably, I mean, what are industrial rents? We went through this the other day. What are net industrial rents?
$8, $9.
Net?
Class A. Oh.
Net? Where? I'm not talking about New York City, I'm talking about Florida.
5.
Two.
We're Airport West. They were
How much are they in Airport West? Let's use that as a nice
like
market.
$9.
Triple net?
No.
Try door number 2. Let's say
7.
you're almost at $9 gross. Take out $2.50, call it $7.
7.
What's the cap rate on that?
Talk to you later. 12. 12.
So if all their assets were in South Florida, is that good or bad?
Good.
Good.
What are rents in Jacksonville?
4.
What are rents in Jacksonville? Mr. Jacksonville man?
$3.
It's a big.
Yeah, $2 to $3. Jacksonville's like another country, man. Listen, I mean, it is another country in a lot of different ways, but, no, listen, the people in, so Jacksonville's got like a lot of call centers and things like that.
Yeah.
They really do, and the thought is always, Jacksonville is like the last stop before you go to India, so it's like, I'm not, what is it? It's not a joke, it's really the truth. It's like,
Yeah.
before you outsource to another country, you go to Jacksonville. I think the other places you could go to South Dakota, but, so if all the assets are in Jacksonville, what's the cap rate there? It's a cap rate. Somebody pull out a calculator. Come on, I'm not gonna do it. 25.
28.
28? 28?
3.57.
3.5, did you calculate it?
3.5. 28.
You guys are going the
Yeah,
wrong
go wrong
direction.
way.
You
And the
divide
other one
rents
is not
by
12.
cost.
Yeah.
NOI,
Yep. The other one wasn't 12.
Yeah.
divided by value.
That 12 should be at 8.3 or something like that, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that still good? That's probably still good if all the assets are in South Florida. All the assets are in Jacksonville, is that good?
Mm-mm.
Okay, we don't know where their assets are. I don't know where their assets are. My sense is gonna be the bulk of their assets are gonna be somewhere here, and they're probably paying around a 5 or 6 cap. But the real question is, it's not whether they paid $5.9 billion, it's what did they buy? And how much did they pay for it? Is that good or bad? Is that high, is that low? And then ultimately, what's the cash flow that it drives, and what's the dividend that it's gonna pay to the shareholders? Okay, now, there was a whole bunch of hotel transactions. I'm not going to get into that, but hotels are in vogue down here, okay? Demand for cheap housing boosts mobile home parks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, you were talking about, yeah.
And that's gonna,
Yeah.
cash is still king, but losing some of its cachet. So what I really want to focus on, if if mobile
What
homes,
publication was that? I'm sorry.
sorry?
What publication was from?
Which one?
The mobile home.
That was from the Wall Street Journal. Very good. It was an article on Sun. It was an article on Sun Communities, which is a manufactured home and mobile home on REE. But the issue there ultimately goes back to what I wanted to do, which is rental rates rising among, you know, everywhere. Rental rates going up, people going to mobile homes. So what I want to do, I hadn't done this in a while, and I just wanted to do this in class. I need you guys focused. I want to do this fast, and I need everybody to have their calculator out because I want you all to follow it. Because I want you just to follow the math. Okay. So the question is housing affordable? I don't have an answer, and there is no right answer or wrong answer, but I want you guys to think of all these concepts. Is housing affordable in South Florida?
No.
Most people are, okay. We don't know. Let's figure it out. Let's kind of just, let's use Dade County. We can do Broward. I got Broward info too, but let's do Dade County. What is the median income in Dade County?
30,000.
38.
What is the median household in Dade County?
I can tell you.
6.
No.
Oh, yeah.
6 people.
Oh, people. They meant.
Oh, I'm telling you.
What is the average? What is not the average? Okay, because there's so there's different measures of central tendency, right? We've got average, right? What's average, right? What's average? No, what is average? Define average. It's the sum total, right? Divided by the number of observations, right? What's median?
Middle.
The middle.
What do you mean the median?
50th percentile.
No, so half of the observations are above,
Yeah.
and half of the observations are below this point, right?
Yeah.
And then another one is mode, right? Another measure of central tendency mode.
That's the one that occurs the
That's
most.
the one, the frequency, the observation occurs the most, okay? So, but median, people usually talk about median, so it's the point at which half of the observations are up, half are down. So it's not average,
No.
but we're going to use it as a measure of central tendency. So the median household in Dade County is how many people?
3, 4, no more.
6.
No.
No.
Can't be that.
No.
3's too much. Probably 2.5.
That's Miami.
Oh, Miami's
No,
bad.
3.
6. Shit,
No.
right. Forgot
3.
Miami.
Yeah.
What is it in Broward?
More.
5.
More.
2.7.
4.6. Less.
Fewer, yeah, because you got an older population here
Yeah.
without kids living in their house, okay? So
Yeah,
the average
you're right.
household, the median, I'm going to use average, and the median household in Dade County has 3 people. What's the median income in Dade County?
51,000.
The median income.
30.
40. 40.
Where do you get this
Yeah,
information?
40. Yeah.
Census.
Yeah.
You go to the US Census site, there's Miami-Dade County sites that have the information as well. Okay, so if the median income is $43,000,
Yeah.
how much can that median income pay? Let's do mortgage first. Let's look at affordability and ownership first, and then let's look at rental.
Okay.
How much can that person pay?
36%.
Well, so I'm going to use 2 different rules of thumb that used to exist way back when there were standards, okay? So
1,000 per month.
way back when, people would say you could pay 33% of your net or 25% of your gross. Okay.
This is gross, 43.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, now, so 25% of your gross is how much? 25% of your gross is?
898 per month.
10,775.
Call it 10.8. Okay, what is 33% of the net?
14,000.
Net.
What's your?
I'm not assuming that is net. Now you got to take taxes out of that. So I just assume like 6% payroll taxes and 15% income taxes. I'll cut through the math on that. I came up with $11,000. So we could say that people could pay just, roughly $10,900 a year
Eight,
for their mortgage.
yes, no more than 850, 890.
$900 a month.
No, or less.
Well, $908 to be precise, if you want to go through that.
No, no, but
No,
we
because I'm not
have-
gonna, you guys are all over the place with a calculator, okay?
Yeah.
So, somebody can pay principal and interest $900 a month. Now, that's assuming they got no other debt. Because if they got credit card debt or whatever, they're FUBAR, okay? They're in bad shape. Okay, so, assuming that interest rates are 4.5%. I want you to do this one for me. Assuming interest rates are 4.5%, and you can get a 30-year mortgage, I want you to do it with your calculator. And assuming that you have a 30-year mortgage, how much of a mortgage could that person afford?
You got your down payment?
I haven't gotten there yet. Get down, that had nothing to do with the down payment.
177.
Solve for PV.
What was the interest rate?
177, 625.
What was the interest rate?
4.5%.
At 4.5% I, right? At 30 years, solve for the present value. I got 177, you said? I might have hit something wrong.
That's using 900 as the payment, right?
Yeah, I used 908, that's why I have a slightly different number. Does anybody get like 179, 178, 177?
177.6.
179.20. Is that right?
203 in mine.
Yeah,
Look
that's
at that. Wow, surprise. He never did that before, did he?
Finance class.
Dude, you can go home and tell your dad that. Okay, so roughly, just to do roughly, you can afford about, an $180,000 mortgage. Now again, I'm not assuming any property taxes, I'm not assuming any insurance, I'm not assuming that you've got to pay any mortgage insurance, because I'm now going to assume that this family can come up with a 20% down payment. So the implication is, if this is 80%, right, that means you can buy a house that's worth how much?
225.
Roughly 225, okay? Now, what that means is, hold on, stop to think of the implications of this. This means a family that, for 3 people, grosses $40,000 a year, has $45,000 worth of cash sitting around to pay down on a house. Hardly. Okay? But basically what they're saying is the typical home, the typical guy in Dade County can afford to pay $225,000 for a house. What's the median home price in Dade County?
330, I think.
3.
Where do you get this information?
I saw a report.
From where?
From my brokerage.
From your broker? Where did they? You guys do market analysis and stuff?
They do.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Can you send us the reports?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do you a better place. You don't have to do it yourself.
Investorpedia. Just kidding.
Minus 1 point.
Not.
National Association of Realtors. Okay, great information. The median price of a residence in Dade County was $270,000. Now, these are all medians, right? So if you go to like, where did Ali say they were developing houses? Like in West, like East Naples, 170-something Avenue in Kendall. I mean, it's like, so maybe out there you can buy a $270,000 house, right? You're going to commute an hour and a half if you work downtown. Well, I mean, but I mean, you know, look at the gap between the median, right? Look at the gap that exists, and then you wonder whether you know, things are affordable or not, right? And if you want to think how bad things were, guys, we're all talking In 2006, I think, if I remember correctly, this number
Yes.
was closer to
I remember.
$360,000. Okay, so I mean, prices have recovered a lot, but they aren't where they were. Now, Broward County's a little different. Median income's $51,000. Smaller homes, right, and smaller residence size, and I didn't go through the whole example, and I'm not going to, but ultimately, you're gonna be able to pay a little bit more, okay? And you could go through the same thing yourself. You can do it for, Palm Beach County. So my point here is there seems to be a gap in home ownership, a possibility within the South Florida area. Now, we could do the same exercise for rent, right? And so we could say, rent is $900, right? So, now the problem is, so what's the average rents, what are the average rents in Dade County?
Like $1,200.
I thought I had this. No, I got it. Yeah, so again, from the National Association of Realtors, average one-bedroom rents in Dade County, asking rents based on 6,000 units that are listed today, $1,982.
That was average?
Yep. And for two bedrooms, $2,831.
One what?
Average is loaded though.
Well, I mean, so listen, so not all units are listed. One second, Chad, I'll get you. Not all units are listed. If you got a, four-bedroom, or a four-unit apartment building in East Little Havana, you don't list it, people drive up, so what's gonna be listed is probably higher-end properties and all that. But then look at, but look at the gaps, right? Now, what this is sort of pushing to is higher home ownership rates. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who's, very dour on multifamily. One, because of the amount of supply that's coming online. It's the only asset class that's been built since 2007, and it continues to be built. And his whole argument is this, so, home ownership rates, were like 63 historically, with all these community lending acts and all the shadow banking and all this stuff. By the time of the boom in 2006, it got up to 66, 67%. It kind of dropped a little bit. His whole argument is that this breach is going to push this back up a little bit, especially with interest rates down low where they are. I don't know if he's right or wrong, but that's his perspective. But my point with all of this is, now, again, Brickell, Miami Beach, whatever, West, or Aventura, whatever. Okay, but, maybe West Kendall. But I think you'd be hard pressed, if you got 3 people, you need 2 bedrooms. I think you're hard pressed to find a $900 rental in Dade County, anywhere. So,
I mean, you have it. Why not?
well, yeah, look, so I did the critical mass ride last night. Has anybody ever done those things? It's kind of wacky. It's not like if you're a real cyclist, like, I think it was like the only guy really wearing my cycling outfit. But it went through like some really interesting areas, okay? So we went from downtown, west on 1st Street, up 22nd Avenue, up to 54th, across to 27th Avenue, and then up 27th Avenue all the way to 79th Street.
That gets a little sketchy.
And it gets worse. Then you go all the way across 79th Street down to 12th Avenue. And you go down 12th, go right by Northwestern High School, and then you really hit some really interesting areas.
Did you were able to get back on your bike?
I got back on my bike. It's funny, because at one point, I was like I got right up at, because like most people are sort of, I got up on the cops, right up front. Like, dude, I'm getting escorted here, No, actually, they were going like at 15, 16 miles. On the mountain bike, it was a nice pace, so, but, like, yeah, if you go on 12th Avenue and 71st Street, you can get a place for $900 easily. You have some interesting neighbors, I mean, it's a bit sketchy. And then you can go down into like some areas Then we wound up in Wynwood. And then from there, I had to get back down to the roads where I left my car. And that was kind of an interesting ride. You know, that was dark at that point and there was no escort. So that was kind of interesting at that point. No, I wasn't scared. No, this guy came up to me, he's like, do you know the way? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, did you grow up here? Yeah, I did. He's like, I am from Costa Rica. I'm just here for the weekend. I'm like, Vega, you know, get close. Get close. Okay, but the point is, I think there's an issue between, and because of all the flight capital here, there's been a definite run-up in the cost of housing, and there are implications to that for people involved in real estate, because ultimately, whether you're developing for people who are going to shop, or whether you're doing market research for a business that focuses on industrial and office, for people to work and shop in places, they have to have an ability to live.
Yeah.
And a question that we've had for a long time in South Florida and in a lot of other urban settings is, where's the workforce going to live and what's the affordability, right? And so, and it begs all of these other issues. You know, there's a whole, you know, immigration issue. And I've got, again, you know, we've all got our own personal beliefs in all of this, but by all accounts, there's what, 12, 13, 15 million, quote, illegal immigrants in this country. A lot of those people are doing a lot of the work that those of us who are here legally can't do, or aren't willing to do, or don't want to do. Those are also the people that are struggling with, where do they live? And they're the guys that are doing, or the ladies that are doing the work for us, you know. And so, you know, we want people to cook at restaurants, we want people to pick up, you know, our garbage. We want people to clean our houses. We want people to be gardeners, you know, blah, 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 blah. But they need a place to live, and it needs to be affordable, and it needs to be proximate to where the services are. You know, otherwise, how do you deal with it? So, I'm not an urban planner. I just asked a question. I don't have the answer. But I think it's stuff that we need to think about. And like, as we've done this with housing, the only thing I can encourage you to do is all the other paradigm changes that we have happening in the industry that impact us, right? So, you know, what is Amazon doing, you know, to retailing? You know, and I say Amazon or other online. Curiously, Simon is using online technology to push their brand now. That was one of the stories I was going to go into. But the world is continually changing, and even though real estate doesn't seem to be as dynamic, it really is. It really, really is. Yes, Brian?
Or aren't they building more work-live places now, where retail and residential are combined? Is that
Listen,
part of the
I think my understanding is that a lot of the urban planning thinking ultimately is pushing multi-use projects everywhere so that people can live by where they shop. And there's definitely, there are political pressures that can be motivated by environmental concerns west of us, right? So we don't want to contaminate drinking water, we want to preserve the water flow of the Everglades, but ultimately that's all pushing people back in. The single biggest reason, and I love driving around. I mean, my thing with the bike yesterday is because I had gone down 12th Avenue, but I go up 27th a lot. I love going through the underutilized. The other day I went to Wynwood, there's a baker there, it's Zach the Baker. They're awesome. Awesome. If you guys want bread, best bread in South Florida. And you can buy it at Whole Foods. That's how I got turned on to it. But, you know, go to Wynwood, but that whole area. There's an area on 79th Street. We rode by here yesterday. So 27th Avenue and 79th Street in Miami, right? So I-95 is here somewhere, right? At one point, way back when, going back to our railroad used to run through here. The little river belt just brought it down to the airport. And we wanted to vacate 600 acres that we had by the airport because we thought there was a higher use in a rail yard there. Well, where do we put our southern terminus? Where do we put our rail yard? One of the things I found was, I'm going back 6-7 years ago, an incredible, probably get about 300 acres of land here that are vacant. And, you know, so I started, who owns it? A lot of that's owned by the Dade County Housing Authority. Well, you know, I don't go there every day, but to my surprise, a lot of this land is still vacant today. So there's an incredible amount of redevelopment opportunities as you look east in South Florida. So for the longest time, the flow, the interest was to go west, right? Greenfield development, let's go as far as we can. But, you know, my point is, now you got 300 acres here, 4 miles from downtown, 5 miles from downtown, you know, 3 miles from the industrial area in Medley, you know, Hialeah. What can you do here? And part of going on a bicycle was, you know, and that's what I encourage all of you is to continually ask, you know. And you have to do that in real estate, and you have to play all sides of the the equation, you know. Ali didn't mention the Montero project that Cadena built. He didn't buy that land. He bought CCD bonds that were held by Goldman that were in distress in 2008. Because his vision was, I can get to the land, you know. There was a process, there was a methodology. So 2008 wasn't the time to develop. 2008 was to position yourself to acquire the inventory, you know, to do that, right? So, am I a buyer? Do the economic conditions dictate that I buy or that I sell, or do I hold, do I accumulate? There's always a time to do something in real estate, right? A lot of bankers in 2007, 2008 became not lenders, but what? You know, workout specialists, right? You know, you've always got to, you know, reinvent yourself and reinvent your business, you know? So, you know, look around and see what's happening in society, see where there are opportunities, and see if you can be, listen, I was intrigued by what I saw in Wynwood. It's not an area that I go to often. You know, we drive by a lot of areas, but we don't go into them a lot, right? And those of you know Professor Maxwell, who used to run the department, he had told me some months ago, he goes, you can't believe what's happening in Wynwood. You can't touch. Wynwood's the old textile area in Miami. And it's kind of, if you go up and down Fifth Avenue, it's kind of like, you know, I want to call it low end. Maybe it's not low end, maybe it's affordable, maybe it's intelligent buying, I don't know. Textile. So if you want to buy stuff at a reasonable price, you can go to TJ Maxx, or you can go to Northwest 20th Street in Dade County, or you can go to Northwest 5th Avenue in Wynwood. But in addition to that, so a lot of people started buying all these rundown warehouses for their art collections, and you know, but you know, now you're starting to see the Zach the Bakers, the Panther Coffees, right? The Wynwood Brewery. So you're starting to see this whole sort of, you know, stuff happening right now. They're very much neighborhoods in transition. It's not, you know, it's not easy to go in there. You have to be a visionary. Yeah. And the first guy may not make the money. You know, I was telling you, the first hotel, Art Deco hotel in South Beach, I'll get you, Alex. The first Art Deco hotel to be redone in South Beach was at Cardozo.
Yeah.
That went through 3 restructurings before it finally landed on good finance, you know, because the guy that was the visionary blew up. And the guy came after him, did 4 of them. He bought that one and he redid 3 other ones and he blew up. Then the next guy who bought actually made good. What were you going to say, Alex?
In Wynwood, some guy bought a block for $300,000, I think it was like 5 or 10 years ago. We sold it for $29 million a few months ago.
Design district is all.
Yeah, 2 retailers.
Yes.
And like,
So,
do you know the Grove by any chance? Go to the Grove?
yeah, I know the Grove.
You know Grand Avenue, they're starting to redo that right now?
Yeah, that's all, that whole, you know, and by the way, I'm curious, I mean, they're splintering neighborhoods there, and I haven't heard the neighborhood complain yet, but they will at some point, and right, they should.
Yeah, I mean, I live about 2 blocks from Grand, and it's getting to that point now where they're starting to sell off the blocks. They've been
You live 2 blocks off Grand, at what intersection?
Douglas and Grand, you go down Douglas towards,
You don't live 2 blocks.
it's like 4. I can walk.
Okay, like more like 5 or 6.
It's
You don't live on Day Avenue,
No,
and you don't live on Franklin.
no, I live
Okay.
on Palm, which is, it's close, it's close.
It's close. Okay.
I have my fair share of experiences from Grand, but,
You did say like 2 blocks, so.
Okay, no, but keep going.
Relatively.
But the entire area's been for sale for years now. It's been for, I mean, they're selling off entire
Well,
blocks.
yeah, there are. Somebody bought a lot of the housing that was there, and and they've packaged it, and the signs are up, and I don't know what their aspirations are.
Well, because someone just built a brand new apartment complex on Grant, and
Well-
no one's gonna live there yet because it's not.
Well, but I mean, again, those of you who don't know Dade County don't know this, so Grand, let's go from here where Mayfair is, Cocoa Walk. Let me do it, sorry. Since this is north, right? Cocoa Walk is Cocoa Walk is here, okay? And then you get McFarland and you get the Bay here, right? And you get 37th Avenue, and then it ends here on US 1,
The
okay?
best Indian restaurant is between the 37th and Cocoa, right there. Close to the 37th.
Oh, over here.
Oh, my
Over
goodness.
here on Commodore.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway,
Right there.
okay, but, so you got 32nd Avenue here. And I would say that from a safety perspective, this was generally a no-go zone.
Yeah.
And all of this now is redeveloped.
Exactly.
And there's offices there, and there's businesses there, and that's already been redeveloped. And the land you're talking about is here and here, and it's not there yet, but, so, somebody's got a vision, and somebody's putting capital at risk, and it may work, it may not work. Somebody may have bought something for $300,000 and sold it for 29, but maybe this guy paid $4 million and he'll never be able to sell it. You know, he'll blow up before he sells it, or not.
Well, on the corner of Grant and 37th, that block just sold for, I think it was probably 8 or 9 million. The guy paid 10 years ago not that much for it. So it's the price is starting to come back, but it's still a very sketchy neighborhood to be in. Like it's just.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying, on which corner?
On the corner of 37th and Grant.
Yeah, but which northeast?
It's across from the empty lot.
It'll give me northeast, northwest, southwest, or southeast?
I'm trying to think. It's,
Chad, I cut you off before, now you're next.
It's, do you know where the new police station is?
Where the?
The new police station they put in on Grand?
That's what
It's,
I was about to say, that's the next step.
Where is that, out here somewhere? I mean, my only question is, so if you pay $9 million for something, what are the development rights associated with that? Is that, I mean, one, what's the size of the lot, but more important than the
It
size?
had like 4 or 5 buildings, and like, it had like 4 or 5 tenants that were on month-to-month leases with it, and it's right on the corner of the major intersection on 37th.
Yeah, but the real question to ask though is, again, in a development context is, what can you do with it? So, what can you build? So what do you have rights to put there, and then what's the cash flow that it's gonna generate?
It has mixed use. It has a T3, T5, that whole corridor. It has a T over zones, because if people think that if you have a T3, you can just go up.
Well, so, and again, this is outside. One thing is what you can build by right, and then the other thing is what you can practically build that the market can bear or absorb.
But things are going pretty fast there. They built one on Day, and I don't remember where, and their asking price is $385 per square foot for 2,400 feet.
Yeah, it's very new construction.
Yeah.
And they're ahead of their times, like everyone's starting to buy the lots up, and they're starting to put these townhomes on there.
Townhouses for.
Well, so I don't want to be ahead of my times, you know, I mean, I want to be rich and obscure, right? I don't want to be rich and famous, and I don't want to be ahead, I want to be on time, not early or late.
Well, sir, I said some of this has to do, and I saw this in DC, you know, even within the last 5 years in areas, is also the community or the government, right? And so, you know, one of the things that obviously the police station is one of them, right? Security, having 24/7 presence in those areas, that's a cost that the government is bearing to provide the safety.
Well, the government's not bearing that cost, you are,
Well,
but yeah.
Well, but they're redirected resources. The other one is I saw there was, you know, the area that I was in Chinatown, really bad neighborhood, they all started getting street grants. And there's probably not that many street grants that are given out every year, but these guys were winning 2 to 3 street grants, and I mean, multi-million-dollar street grants, so now they're improving the infrastructure, yeah,
Oh, great
that are
infrastructure.
that are on the streets, that of course, the real estate developer's not gonna pay for the street reconstruction, but when they did, they put in brand new, I call them atomic lighting, because it's like daytime, and so, you know, all the kind of elements of nightlife that were not that great did not want to be there, because literally you could see everything that was going on, and then you had police sitting there, you know, 24/7, and it was just very difficult for them to.
Curiously, one of the things that was evident last night as night fell, in a lot of the areas where we went, is how bad the public lighting was. And when you got to some of the projects on 12th Avenue, I mean, it was kind of interesting because all the kids came running out. You see all these crazy people on bikes and all that, but you know, the thing that I kept thinking is you know,
With helmets.
sorry, with helmets.
With helmets.
But you know, the crazy thing was you know, just see how bad the lighting was and how important lighting is. But anyway, I'm not going to spend. We exhausted that. I just wanted to throw ideas out there because we can just talk about numbers. Yes.
Quick question, what were the bonds that you said were bought?
They were CDD bonds.
CDD for municipality, or what were they for?
Well, we'll get what is a community development district?
Oh, okay.
What is it?
Okay, I don't know, but.
Well, okay, we'll find out when we go over the case study. Just real quick, the difference between school and life. In school, you're taught a lesson, then given a test. In life, you're given a test that teaches you a lesson. Okay, the other one was, here's a fact of life. I shouldn't post this. Hold on, turn that camera on. Okay. I'll probably get fired for this. A fact of life is that even after Monday and Tuesday, you have anyway, I saw that. I thought that was kind of cute.
Don't worry, we redirected the angle.
That's okay.
What does that mean?
What's that,
Hey, may not be
WTF?
the English.
Write that down.
Oh, is that going to be on the quiz?
Well, you get that one. Okay, case
Quiz
study.
time.
Case study. Quiz time. We got a lot of work. Case study. So you can check your grades here.
Whoa.
You've got to know your NOVA number. So I mean, I didn't put your name, so you got to know your NOVA number.
On the
So,
case study?
you know, yeah, listen, so generally I graded them, you know, a little bit more rigorously than the last time. And,
Can you pass that around?
no, because then you won't pay attention. You can come up after class. Well, it's not, I'll send it to you. It's not that critical. The high grade, and I think there were a couple of them were 82s. The average was 64.
Oh, great.
The average was 64, and we had some others that were below that. So now just a couple of
So
things.
the high was 84?
82.
Great.
That's in the case study or?
On the case study. So, but listen, you guys, dude, you get like 4 points for showing up and stuff. So. Relax.
Those are well deserved.
Relax, okay?
Those are points earned.
A penny earned is a good. Okay, a couple of things. Number one, Investopedia. Investopedia is not a site that I ever want to be cited in my class, okay? Do not go to Investopedia. It's garbage.
Really?
It's garbage. It really is garbage, okay?
Is that Wikipedia or is that?
I said Investopedia.
Oh, that's actually a website.
Yeah, I'm not making it up. I do not want Wikipedia cited in this class. Now, truth be told, there are certain financial areas within Wikipedia which are very good, which have been done by finance professors, but for the most part, those are not academic sources, okay? We're in an academic program. If you're asked questions, the first thing is use your textbooks. Most of you are either taking or have taken the finance and investments class. Go to the Brueggemann book. I mean, so, you know, if you want to know what, you know, a covenant is, did you look at the resources that you had? if you want to know what a community development district is, go to a, if you want to do a search on Google, go to a law firm that specializes on doing, CDDs, not to Wikipedia or Investopedia. Try to find sources that bring knowledge to you, not sources that just give you an easy answer. I pulled out 7 or 8 pages of information on the 1031. I got it from law firms, and I got it from the IRS site. Now, I could have gone to 1031'srus.com, and there are places like that. I didn't even care what they said. This is somebody telling you something. So, in the context of an academic program, no more Investopedia, Wikipedia, accountingbasics.com, accountingplus.com, whatever, all those things. Okay, so I was gonna copy something. I had some real doozies, okay? I had some real doozies, like warranties are like a warranty. I really did have one of those. Okay, so you can't define.
Thank you, that was not me.
You can't define what we're trying to identify by itself, right? A warranty is like a warranty on, okay? So, and then other things I just want to say up front, look. So, specifically there are questions on warranties and on sureties, and warranties and bonds are not insurance. Insurance is something, a warranty is something. So you can't say, well, a warranty insures this. A surety insures this. No, there is insurance, we'll talk about that, there is insurance, there are warranties, and there are bonds, and each ones are different concepts. They may be similar, but insurance is one thing, and a warranty is something else, and a surety is something else. I won't get to all of that. I'm going to go through all the questions. I don't have a lot of time, so go quickly. If you have any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. First question, nature of the business. Very flowery. I think everybody got this right as long as you submitted it right. But they're a home builder, and a home builder is very easily defined. We know what a home builder is by its traits and characteristics. So as long as you said that, I think most of you got the 5 other. No, just focus. Focus on the answers. Focus. Listen. Learn. Listen. Okay. Most of you got the publicly traded home builders. Where do you find that information?
Yahoo Finance.
Okay, Yahoo Finance is a source. That's a good source for finance information. Where else?
Google Finance.
Google Finance is another good source.
Builder Online.
You can go, see, I don't know, some people did that, but I don't know what Builder Online is. Now, what I would suggest is then you have a trading or a brokerage account. Apaga eso, niño. Guárdalo. You want to call your dad, dude. Don't pull the hook on you. You're going back to Venezuela. Ven para acá, chavo, yeah! Se acabó. Okay. If you have a brokerage account, you could use your broker, okay? And in specific, so we're under industry classifications, where are home builders classified? Did anybody check? No, it's under consumer durables. Don't ask me why, but it's under consumer durables. And where are REITs? Does anybody know where REITs are? REITs are going to get their own classification, but they don't have it yet. They're under financial services. Okay, but that should kind of tell you where the world views what real estate is, right? So real estate is kind of a financial instrument or a vehicle. I know it means a lot of other things. So most of you got it right. The ones that got it wrong, I think, somebody picked up, and it may have been from Builder Online, so picked up some privately owned, I got like GL Homes and things like that, so I got a couple of privately owned ones, but for the most part you got it right. I'm looking for thought process on who's doing better and who's doing worse. the other issue, not everybody answered all the questions. Somebody answered part of the question, but not all of the question. So I was looking for thought process. There's a lot of different ways to gauge whether a company's in worse shape or better shape. The things that I would look for would be profitability, debt to equity. Why? How much substance, how much skin, how much staying power do they have? The most important one that I was looking for that I didn't get was liquidity. Who's got more cash? Because at the end of the day, and I'm going to jump to the last question. The last question was, what happened to home builders? I got the same canned answer. The Great Depression, the Great Recession, people blew up, Tusa went out of business. Like, everybody got the same answer. Oh, you weren't collaborating. Everybody got the same answer. Everybody, Tusa went out of business. You know, yeah, but a whole bunch of home builders didn't. Lennar didn't go out of business. D.R. Horton didn't go out of business. Pulte, Toll, Hovnanian, none of those went out of business. Centex at the time didn't go out of business. How come they didn't go out of business and this one did? These guys ran out of cash. So, at the end of the day, they could have been over-leveraged. They could have had huge exposure on their inventories. But whoever had cash survived. And whoever had structured their debt in a way that they wanted to be called by the bank. So, nice long-term structure on their debt. So, there was the Great Depression, there was a dearth of mortgages. Who cares? So maybe they didn't sell that much. Could they have cut their structure down a little bit, right? But the more important thing is cash rules, liquidity. We'll talk about that in a second, okay? Market cap. You know, market cap is the market's interpretation of the value of a firm. It may or may not be right, but does it really determine or tell you what financial strength is? Not really. I mean, it's very collateral, very well down the line. Those are the, again, I was looking for thinking. Risk factors, most of you got.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
yeah, absolutely.
If when looking at that though, if you look at like WCI had a really large growth quarter over quarter compared to the other home builders, so wouldn't that mean that they have to spend more to get that growth? So their profit margins would be less?
Well,
or
so
their operating margins would be less than their peers?
Well, to answer the question specifically, no. So the fact that you've got to invest and invest capital doesn't, so remember, there's cash flow and there's profitability. Two different things. So one thing is having the resources to make the investments that you need to make. Some of those investments are capitalizable or assets. So I'm a smaller guy, I'm growing, I got to buy a bunch of inventory. That's not an expense in that period. So the fact that you've got to,
but maybe not inventory, but you're ramping up, you're opening up offices, you're incurring a lot more operating expenses.
You may. There is scale. In size, right? So the bigger you are, hopefully you've got more unit sales to amortize fixed costs over. So your answer may be right, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're right. The fact that a company has a higher growth rate doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to have a tighter margin. It may in a mature business, right? But in technology, for instance, you may have great growth rate and you may have huge margins because you happen to have a product that nobody else has. Not maybe in a mature industry like home building, what you're saying is the only way that they can get that growth is by undercutting somebody else or investing more in marketing, right? Or providing a costlier product. So you may be right, but not necessarily.
Well, just comparing them to the other ones, they had one of the larger growth rates quarter over quarter, but yet they had one of the lowest profit margins or operating margins.
Well, but
and I was just trying to figure that out. Like, why
listen, that could be the competitive set of. It's a highly concentrated business geographically, and it may have a lot more to do with what pricing pressures are there than anything else. It may. I don't know. But that's why. So when you look at financial strength, you got to look at, and we'll go through some metrics in a second. You got to look as broad a circle of information, which could be growth rates and return on assets and return on equity, but ultimately it comes back to sustainability. right? So I'm looking, I want to ask you, which one's better, right? Then I'm going to look, personally, I'm going to look at liquidity and I'm going to look at sustainability, right? How much cash do you have and how much equity do you have compared to, debt that you're...
With those two, you just make up your mind?
No, I won't make it up that way, but I'm giving you very much a value play in from an investing perspective. Value investors focus much more on tangible net worth, right? You could say consistency of earnings, right? But you're looking for low leverage, okay, and liquidity, the ability to sustain dividends and things like that.
Wait, more. So you're looking at what, the current ratio on that? Or?
I could look at current ratio. Now the problem is, well, a lot of real estate businesses don't show classified balance sheets, but you could still classify it yourself. Yeah, so the answer is yeah.
Because I mean, obviously, like,
how much
got more
yeah.
cash than WCI.
So more than but more than current ratio, I'd look at like, and I'm jumping ahead to what we're going to cover later, a quick ratio. I take out inventories because how monetizable are all those inventory units? Land. So in the context of a home builder, I'm looking at cash because they shouldn't have receivables and they shouldn't have a lot of payables.
Yes.
They shouldn't. And if they do, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Can you summarize 3 things that you look at a company that like, just 3, you think? Like,
Me personally?
Yeah.
But home builders are different animals.
Yeah. So if I were going to look at, if I were going to only look at 3 things in a company, me, and I'm looking to invest or somehow be involved in that company financially, what would I look for? I'm going to assume I'm an investor for a second, okay? I'm going to look personally, I look at tangible net worth and debt to equity. So I want to know that there's underlying value there. So, and as a consequence of that, I'm going to look at what the book value per share is. Now, there's no real relationship between book value and market value, but there should be, especially in a new business, some sort of correlation. And the more financial the business, the more correlation that there needs to be. Okay, so I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look at profitability and I'm going to look at liquidity. And why profitability and liquidity? Because ultimately I care about a dividend. Me, a value investor, I care about a dividend. So if they're profitable and they have liquidity, they should have sustainability in the dividend. And that's what I care about. Now,
Yeah.
if you're a 20-year investor, right, and you don't care about dividends, you're going to look at 3 other things. You might look at growth rates, gross margin, and
low. No.
Dude, that's technical analysis, dude. What is that? So what you're telling me is if a company hit its 52-week low, it means it's a bargain? What prevents it from going lower? And if it hit its 52-week high, does that mean that that's the top? By the way, there may be some people do look at that, but I don't drink from that tea. That's capital markets class. That's not this class. So you got to come back. You got to pass this class and the investment class so you get another bite at the apple. Guys, we got a lot of material to cover. Risk factors. There are no right ones or wrong ones. I just was looking for why and a lot of people gave them to me and they didn't tell me the why they thought. Okay. Covenants. Most of you, ultimately covenants. The only thing that I would add to the answers that I got, so covenants are a component of debt agreements which are going to impose conditions which could be negative, but they could be positive. And that's the part that a lot of people, so, you must maintain a ratio of this, you can't pay dividends, you can't pay compensation over that, but it might also say you will obtain this entitlement by so-and-so date. There are positive and negative conditions or stipulations. And ultimately it is for the protection of the collateral of the lender. Okay, so ultimately what the lender is protecting himself from actions that management would take that would impair the value. You got that? That it would impair the value of their loan. Okay? Okay, sureties. So a surety is a 3-party agreement, okay? Surety is not, so a lot of sureties are also insurance companies, but sureties are different than insurance, right? Because an insurable act is when a third party gives you financial compensation for a loss that's been incurred. The surety actually steps into the shoes of one of the parties and performs the obligation and the work. Okay, so even within the context of an insurance company, people that work in a surety are a lot more nervous than typical underwriters in an insurance company, right? Because if you provide a payment and performance bond on behalf of a contractor or a subcontractor, it's not about if the guy breaches or defaults that you write a check to somebody. You actually got to go out there and take the place of that guy, and now you got to find a contractor and perform the work and fix it. Make sense?
Yes, and the company has one audience in the court for the warranties.
No, but this is not warranty. This is surety.
I know. But when you was talking about this, I remember the part that say that maybe they need to pay a lot of money, or they don't know about previous, because this company became from a bankruptcy.
Yeah, but hopefully one of the things in this country is that bankruptcy cleanses you from all previous obligations. You know, at that point, bankruptcy, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about bankruptcy when we spend time. Thankfully, I'm not an expert in bankruptcies, but we'll talk about that in the capital markets class, okay? And what happens with obligations in that process. I was going to say one other thing about sureties. Where are they used? Construction companies, construction agreements, municipal governments, right? So ultimately, you're not looking for only, it could be to guarantee escrows, but you're typically not only looking for a financial guarantee, you're looking for some sort of performance, obligation being met. Okay?
Question with that. So do insurance companies do not issue surety bonds?
So insurance companies may have surety operations that will function independent of them. So, you know, they split up now, but St. Paul used to have a surety division and an insurance division. One holding company, but two different operating entities. So if you go to Prudential Life, or let's go to a casualty company, you know, Cigna. They may have a division that does sureties. I don't know. I don't think they're active here in Florida. But their insurance operations, their liability or third-party liability would not issue performance bonds or payment bonds. So a surety would issue a bond, not an insurance company. Okay? Make sense? Done? Okay. Is there a controlling shareholder? Is there a controlling shareholder? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Who is it?
It was two companies.
Yeah, it was two.
Well, but then is there a control? Is there a
No.
controlling shareholder?
No.
So I mean, I had a lot of people gave me a bunch of facts and didn't say yes or no. So my answer to this is there is a controlling group, and that controlling group is a handful, a very limited number of private investors, and not because of their shareholdings, but because they control the board. And they control the board not only directly. If you look, who's the chairman? Steve Plavin. Who is he? He's from Blackstone. Is Blackstone invested here? Not directly, but it's a club. So these guys all, you know each other, and so ultimately, the chairman is from Blackstone. Bartels is from Monarch, which is one of the large shareholders. Michelle McKay is iStar, another group. Christopher Wilson is Stonehill, that's the other big investor. And Neven is Monarch. So you got one shareholder, it's got two directors, another one's got one, and the other two are institutional private equity guys, just like them. So the board is very close, it's very tight. You know, there's really very limited true outside directors here. So, you know, the answer is there may not be one controlling shareholder. And you can control a company without owning more than 50% of the stock.
Yes.
And there's a lot of different ways to do that. You can do it directly, right? So maybe you've got, you know, the Ford family, you know, they own 5% of the stock, but they've got all the voting stock. Or Lennar, the Miller family owns more than 50% of the voting stock, and everybody else owns the rest, okay? That's the AB structure in stocks. Viacom, Sumner Redstone controls the voting stock. Everybody else buys. Google, the 3 founders control the A shares. Everybody else owns the B shares. There's a lot of different ways to do that. But ultimately, it's influence. You know, I used to ask the question when I used D.R. Horton once or twice on this, and that is there a controlling shareholder? But Mr. Horton only owns like 0.03% or whatever, the outstanding stock. But he's the chairman, the president, and the CEO. And his name's on the company, and his son's like, you know, the VP of development or whatever. So he may not have economic control, but he runs a company. And so you just got to take a look at it, right? So maybe no one here has economic